And Stephen joins us on the stove this morning to not only pay off the Dippin' Dots story, but to preview the college baseball season. Stephen, thanks for the time, man. How you doing?
Of course, I'm doing great. Look at where we are. Couldn't be better. College baseball is starting. It's truly one of the best games in the world. And, it might be a gloomy day, but in my heart, college baseball starting, it's sunny and 75.
All right. I like the optimism. We're going to ask you about some bigger picture college baseball stories in a minute. But first, I want to pay off that Dippin' Dots story. Was that the end of your college career? And what was the deal with Dippin' Dots sending you like boxes and boxes of product?
Yeah, so it was one of those things where I had that interview. Probably one of the worst times NIL-wise, because it was about probably the last sporting events happening in college sports that you couldn't get NIL money for. So the only thing you could get was free products, and they sent over a bunch of Dippin' Dots, and I had a lot of brain freeze. But that was probably the best way I could remember my third last college baseball game that I played.
Excellent.
That is so cool. So, Stephen, you were a really good pitcher in college. You decided to forego the pro career in a sense, right? And just went right into this. I'm curious as to why. How'd you end up not wanting to be a pitcher in the pro ranks?
Yeah, so the game actually after the interview was against ODU, and I had, like an idiot, blown a lead, so I had to pitch out of that. And I'm a big type of, I believe closers, you live by your closer and die by the closer. So if I'm out there blowing a game, I'm going to work through it. And my pitch count had worked up a little bit, and my elbows started hurting real bad. And then I threw one, felt a little bit of a pop, and I was like, okay, well, somehow I have this opportunity to talk about baseball, so we'll just do that. We'll forego the minor league potential professional career and just cover college baseball, which I couldn't be happier with this, I'm being truthful.
You found a niche, because not many players are walking off the field and can really give us an insight into, I just faced that guy. I just did a scouting report on this player.
Especially the college game.
Yeah.
We got guys coming out our ears that do that in Major League Baseball, but Harold's right on it there. So given your experience, given the research you've done into the college sport this year, here's a preview. Who are some of the teams we should be watching this season?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the teams that everyone obviously is going to look out for is going to be LSU. They have a ton of talent. They attacked the transfer portal hard this offseason. And I think they're in a situation where everyone looks at their lineup and goes, oh my goodness, these are the best hitters in college baseball. And sometimes that causes people to forget that on the mound, they also have some of the best pitchers in college baseball. So, Jay Johnson down there, he's got a tough job of making sure everyone's on the same page, because, you got a team full of superstars. Now all that matters is how they mesh together and how they perform as a team. And as long as they click, I think they're going to be really fun to watch this year. It's just a question of, will they be the team everyone thinks they're going to be?
You said something there, and I know you got more of a list here to go through, but I want to jump on this real quick, though. The transfer portal. We hear about it a lot in college football, right? But I have heard the effect so much in baseball, because those guys are instantly transforming organizations instantly. They're now playing like I can go get a kid who was the best player in the Pac-12, and boom, he's now on my roster. And they're doing that a lot in the SEC and in college baseball. I won't pick on conferences, but I'm seeing that a lot. Is that the new trend, where guys are really teaming up like that?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and it kind of leads into my next big point, which was the level of talent in mid-majors. I'm sorry if I just throw the show a curveball.
No, you're good.
Wow, look at you guys on the fly. That is impressive. But just with the transfer portal being the way it is, there's going to be a lot of talent being kind of poached from the mid-major schools, which, the transfer portal is one of those things where it's really, really good for players. It gives them a lot more freedom. But I will be honest, it does hurt the smaller schools, because, you think about it, if there's a guy at a small school who goes and plays in the Cape over summer, has a really good summer, people are going to take notice. And now coaches are allowed to go, well, that guy looked really good. He's going to be in our uniform this spring. So it's a really interesting dynamic. I do think it'll stay very popular just because the demand to play in these conferences like the SEC, ACC, Pac-12, all sorts of different great conferences guys are going to want to go to. And also, like, I like to think of it this way. When you commit to a college, a lot of these guys are 15, 16, 17 years old. I went and watched Marley and Me when I was 15 years old, and I knew what it was about. 15-year-olds aren't making the best decisions, okay? So it gives them the opportunity to test out the water at a school that they committed to and see if it's really for them. So I'm a big believer in the transfer portal because it really helps the player.
You know, my only concern with the transfer portal, too, is the development of the younger players. How's that going to happen? If you're a freshman, all of a sudden the guy transfers in, he's going to play now with the college experience. How are we going to develop young guys in college?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question because, you know, the NCAA is making a great move where they're going to bring on third paid assistants, which I do think will help with the development of players. It is going to be tougher for, you know, situations like you presented where there's a freshman who thinks he's going to get playing time this year. And then, you know, someone from another school is just like, hey, by the way, I'm going to start here this week. So it does kind of provide a negative drawback for players in those situations. But at the same time, the development's going to come in the off season. You know, college baseball, it's been 235 days since we've had it, and that was only 2 teams. So there's probably been, you know, all the rest of the teams have had about 250 days since they last played. So there's tons of time in the off season for that development. Sure, you can't replace the game experience, but I think with the way the transfer portal's been handled, a lot of guys are having a better understanding of their coach's expectations of them. Because as a coach, you got to be transparent. Otherwise, these guys might just leave.
Hey, Stephen, lastly here, we've got this great Desert Invitational tournament coming up, and a lot of conferences are represented, including the Big Ten with Michigan and Michigan State. We're going to talk to Michigan State head coach a little bit later on in this show. Why is it that the Big Ten doesn't get the love that some feel it deserves as a baseball conference?
I personally, I think it's just because it's kind of cold where they are. You know, you think about these games, you think about the SEC, those games are always packed. The weather, it's always going to be warm in some degree. You know, you aren't going to be like Michigan where you're playing in the snow. But I think just the fact that they aren't filling their stadiums because it's cold out can play a role in that, as silly as it sounds. But I also just think that it's kind of gone unnoticed how good they have been at baseball the past couple of years, because you got teams like Maryland and Rutgers who, you know, they have incredible seasons, but then they don't make the tournament. So it makes you wonder, you know, why these guys are winning 40-plus games and not getting the credit that I feel they deserve. And I think it's just the fact of the matter that they don't get a ton of fans.
Hey, thanks for the insights today, Stephen. Our appetites are raring to go for this Desert Invitational tournament. We're going to have a lot of live coverage of it starting today. We appreciate your insights on college baseball.